And so here we are, the last chapter in our collaborative work with To the Future, covering Elon Musk's ambitions to colonize Mars and the different methods that he might use to accomplish it. But before we move on with this final chapter, and as sad as it makes me to say words like that, we have a few other things to cover in terms of the sponsorship that I just acquired, because a few changes have been made. First of all, by the time this episode airs, the Starship model, which you folks seem to be so enthusiastic about, will be back in stock. But it's not going to last very long, so take advantage of that immediately and don't forget Angry 10. However, 3D plans of the Crew Dragon remain in stock and of course will stay in stock since they're virtual plans and can be printed out whenever you like. Plus, we have a brand new set of 3D plans for an upgraded Starship. And let me tell you something, this thing is extremely detailed and also it is absolutely gigantic. I mean, look at it. It includes the Super Heavy and the Starship, and it runs just over $20 US. I mean, look at it. This fella is a pretty big guy, and look at the size of the model. So don't pass this up. And if you don't have a 3D printer, well, I've got a solution for you there too, so check the description. And finally, in the next episode, I'll be opening a Patreon page for this channel in an effort to try to make this my career, and there'll be all kinds of perks and benefits for you guys. But getting back to the topic at hand, we've been discussing ways that NASA might be able to collaborate with Elon Musk in making colonizing Mars a reality, to providing a core of experienced astronauts, to contests that have resulted in various kinds of habitation domes that are 3D printed and include protection from radiation and also very important aspect of natural light, to various ways of producing fuel for the Starship on the surface of the planet, something that Elon Musk has always insisted is extremely important to his success. But the problem with NASA, of course, is that they're just a fickle agency. All it takes is one change in administration and all of that support could go away. So what do we do if that happens? I guess the real question is, if NASA decides to put Mars on the back burner again, can Elon Musk go it alone? Well, we're gonna find that out right now. Good evening, and welcome to the final part of my collaboration with To the Future, the Angry Astronaut and To the Future. What a team, and I am so grateful for this opportunity to have been made available to me. I hope you folks have enjoyed this, and I am rather sad that it's coming to an end. But I offer my deepest thanks to Sebastian and Zishuan for giving me this opportunity, because without them, my growth to over 3,000 subscribers simply would not have happened, and I will remain eternally grateful for that. So I hope this episode and this conclusion lives up to everybody's expectations. That having been said, some of you are probably wondering about the Starship opportunity and Angry 10 and Spaceship Mania and all that. Frankly, Spaceship Mania was unprepared for the incredible response from the best subscribers in the universe and sold out of their stock within 15 hours. I am just overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed by your response. But by the time this episode airs, we will have replaced our stocks, Basic Mania rather, will have. And that's probably going to sell out very quickly as well. As I'm sure a number of you have guessed, they're a small company. They're just getting started, kind of like me. And that's why I wanted them to be my sponsors, and that's why I'm so grateful that they decided to be my first sponsor. So that all being the case, go back to their store. There should be some Starships waiting for you, and get your Starship quickly, because it's probably going to be another sellout very, very swiftly. And in addition to that, I'm convinced that you folks are ready to help me make this my career and my profession. And so get ready for some very exciting changes and exciting benefits on this channel. So, all of that having been said, let's move on to the topic at hand. Part 4 of my collaboration, Can SpaceX Complete the Colonization of Mars Without NASA? Can Elon Musk go it alone? One of the most obvious ways for SpaceX to go it alone, at least in terms of revenue, is through the Starlink constellation. And they're launching these satellites, as most of us know, as rapidly as they possibly can. However, there are going to be certain challenges to this system, even though Elon Musk says that we should be ready to start offering service by the end of 2020 or 2021, at least in North America and perhaps parts of Europe. For example, the FCC is offering up to $16 billion worth of subsidies to any company that can provide low latency internet access to rural areas. However, they don't seem convinced that Starlink can do that, at least not yet. In a recent statement, the FCC said, quote, "In the absence of such a real-world performance example, Commission staff could not conclude at this time that such a short-form applicant is reasonably capable of meeting the Commission's low-latency requirements. We therefore have serious doubts that any low Earth orbit networks will be able to meet the short-form application requirements for bidding in the low-latency tier." If Starlink fails to get FCC subsidies out of all of this, they may find it difficult to compete in the open market as far as high-speed internet is concerned as well. It's been estimated that the monthly charge for a residential subscriber will be about $80 a month plus $100 to $300 for installation because of that pizza box size receiver that we always hear about. That's a pretty good price, but actually more expensive than other broadband providers charge. Now, I spent a number of years, actually decades, in the high-speed competitive internet business, and people like myself and a number of companies see the value in low latency, but frankly, a lot of people don't. If it works and if it's fast enough to run Netflix, that's all they really care about. And so, as a result, Starlink may find itself restricted to more rural areas where it's more difficult to get high-speed internet access, as opposed to competing in areas where it already exists. Now, while I do believe that Starlink will eventually produce the $50 billion a year revenue that SpaceX likes to talk about, it may take some time for that to happen. It would be in Elon Musk's interest to not depend on this one revenue stream. And fortunately, he isn't. Not at all. Instead, as many of us know, Elon is now putting the lion's share of his research and development efforts into what he's been working on for the longest time now, and that, of course, is the Starship. He's offering incentives, actually, to his employees to move to Boca Chica, and there's very good reason for that. This ship, single-handedly, can commercialize low Earth orbit and beyond and open up an entirely new industry which it will completely dominate. And how will the Starship accomplish this? Well, let's look at a couple of space-based industries which the Starship will completely transform. The first of these is the so far unsuccessful industry of mining asteroids, and the most promising company, in my opinion, is one called TransAstra, and their fleet of ships, which are called honeybees and queen bees. And unlike other asteroid mining endeavors, these are designed to capture asteroids and then mine them, rather than descending to asteroids and trying to mine them that way. And they're propelled by a revolutionary type of thruster called an omnivore. Now, the omnivore uses solar energy to heat up the water in a C-class asteroid to provide superheated water vapor to provide thrust, more than enough to get the mining ship around. However, how do you get it into orbit in the first place? Well, Ad Astra has a very clear plan in mind, and yes, that is the SpaceX Starship, designed to carry the Queen Bee, the flagship of their operation, into orbit and into position to capture asteroids. Now, as we watch this animation, I'd like all of you to appreciate just how damn big this thing is, given how small of a space it initially occupied within the Starship's cargo hold. I mean, wow! Once fully deployed, this vessel has the ability to capture and mine and transport an asteroid that's 30 to 40 meters in diameter, or nearly as much volume as the Starship had in the first place. This innovative ship requires no power source because it uses solar energy. It requires no propellant because it uses optical mining to get the propellant from the asteroid itself. A small percentage of it is all that's necessary. And also no crew or anything else. You just let it go. It finds the asteroids, captures them, mines them, and brings the material back. In this case, the volatiles necessary to produce fuel. So let's watch this optical mining system in process. All it does is collect solar energy and concentrate it into a narrow beam to heat up the reactive chemicals in the asteroid, namely carbon and water, producing carbon dioxide and water vapor. Next, you introduce electrolysis, also provided by solar power, into the mixture, producing methane and oxygen, therefore allowing you to create methylox fuel, which is what both the Starship and the Blue Origin New Glenn rockets are going to be using in great quantities. Now, other types of fuel, usable by a variety of other space agencies who have ambitions of going to the moon or refueling in other locations, can also be produced by this ship. It has an active refrigeration unit and heavy insulation so that there's no propellant boil-off. So this ship can essentially maintain the fuel that it gathers indefinitely, and a hell of a lot of it. 5,000 tons worth of material from one asteroid. So, if you deploy the ship for a 2-year period for 3 missions, you can get up to 15,000 tons worth of fuel. And by the way, the Starship only requires 500 tons worth of refueling in orbit in order to make the journey to Mars. So, think of what's possible here. The queen bee and its smaller cousins, the honeybees, are capable of gathering up all the fuel necessary for the Starship or any other vessels that might be heading to Mars or to the moon. Anyone who has any ambitions of refueling in space rather than trying to refuel on the moon, which might be a lot more complicated, or trying to refuel on Earth, which is completely inefficient, could make use of these types of ships. Plus, it has the added benefit of removing low Earth asteroids, which represent a threat to all of us. How many billions might that be worth? This ingenious asteroid mining system, made possible only by the Starship's vast cargo capacity and reusability, kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It provides a great deal of revenue to SpaceX and all the fuel that they will require to make a journey to Mars, to the Moon, or pretty much anywhere else they want to send the Starship. And these guys are by no means the only corporation with these kinds of aspirations. The United Kingdom-based Asteroid Mining Corporation intends to use satellites to identify near-Earth asteroids that are rich in rare metals and mineral deposits. Now, exploiting these deposits may prove to be more important to the future of our civilization than we might realize. Platinum and palladium resources, for example, on this planet are running lower and lower every year. The demand is always higher every year than the amount that we can mine. Not because there isn't much of a demand, but because the stuff is so damn hard to get at. And by the way, 95% of the Earth's platinum reserves are in one country, South Africa, and very difficult to get at. 95% in one country, a fact that is not lost on a company called First Mode, which is made up of the remnants of a failed asteroid company called Planetary Resources. And these guys have already designed the necessary equipment to carry this out. They just need the funding, and fortunately, they've secured contracts with Earth-based mining corporations to include their efficiency and technology. But these terrestrial contracts worth millions of dollars have not diverted First Mode from their long-term objective, which is made obvious by the front page of their website, which features the asteroid 16 Psyche, which may be the most valuable asteroid in the solar system and more easily accessed not from Earth, but from Mars. Now, of course, critics of this multi-billion-dollar industry have always pointed to the fact that companies have come and gone trying to exploit the resources of space, but none of these companies had access to a vessel with this kind of cargo capacity and this kind of reusability. The Starship will change the face of asteroid mining forever. But apart from the money and the fuel that can be generated from asteroid mining, it's the partnership with Axiom Space and companies like it that are really going to provide what SpaceX needs for a successful journey and long-term habitation on Mars. As I mentioned in previous episodes, Axiom Space plans to be the first company to build a private space station in low Earth orbit. Now, with the help of heavy lift vehicles like the Starship, or at least the Falcon Heavy, Axiom plans on adding modules onto the ISS and then detaching them, forming a free-floating space station that is privately owned, giving SpaceX invaluable experience with life support along with access to life support technology. And on top of that, Axiom plans on adding astronaut training, because all of the astronauts going on the 2021 mission, which is a collaboration between Axiom and SpaceX, all of those astronauts will be trained by Axiom and not by NASA, therefore providing a source of highly trained astronauts for future missions to Mars. But these guys are not the only ones with aspirations of private space stations. There's also a company called Nanoracks that intend to use discarded second stages from Centaur rockets and to convert them into space stations. Finally, somebody who wants to take these pieces of junk, these non-reusable rockets, and to make some kind of use out of them. And as you can see, they have their own engines and the ability to dock with the ISS and other space stations. And since they clearly want to do things on the cheap, they're going to want a low-cost, heavy-lift capability rocket to transport the equipment necessary, and life support especially, in order to convert a discarded second stage into a space station, thus providing SpaceX with revenue and additional life support technology and experience. So, before the first Starship arrives at Mars, all of these things give SpaceX the potential to have the life support technology and experience, astronaut training, the fuel, and the revenue necessary to begin a Martian colony. But what about the rest of it all? Habitation, food, that sort of thing. Well, SpaceX has the capability of handling that in a pinch as well. The Boring Corporation should be able to take care of any subsurface radiation-proof habitats for new colonists, and all of their experience with building space stations should help with the life support. And then as far as food is concerned, Kimball Musk has a tremendous amount of experience with growing food without soil. So even that particular issue should be fairly easy for SpaceX to check off the list without any sort of outside help. But in the end, as long as he has the revenue, whether that be from asteroid mining or the commercialization of space and private space stations, what have you, as long as SpaceX has the money, they can purchase any of these things that NASA has sponsored. They didn't establish any exclusive copyrights on these places, so there are no real insurmountable barriers here. Elon started this company less than 20 years ago with a handful of employees and a dream. And look where we are now. We stand upon the precipice of becoming a multi-planetary civilization, and only one thing remains, and that's the successful development of the Starship. If that can be accomplished, nothing else is impossible, and I think that we are very close to a beautiful future. So, I hope that I've been able to show all of you a number of different ways that SpaceX can accomplish Elon Musk's objective of making us a multi-planetary culture and a civilization that's going to last without Starlink, without relying exclusively on that one particular source of revenue, and without NASA as well. Now, it's my solid hope that NASA decides to come along for the ride, that this is a truly collaborative arrangement. And I think both episode 2 and episode 3 from To the Future demonstrates just how much we want that to happen. But in case it doesn't, Elon Musk and the Starship will be capable of carrying out the colonization with the assistance, of course, of other agencies who have a lot to gain from the Starship. So I hope that we've made that extremely clear tonight. So that's the end of our collaboration, and I'm so sad to be saying that. But I hope that you folks have gained something from it, and it is my hope that what we've talked about in these particular 4 episodes comes to some sort of fruition, and that we manage to colonize Mars in the very near future, because the future of our civilization depends on it. So until then, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.